Under collateralized loans. What? So in the DeFi space, we've been talking about this all year, right? Like DeFi, you have to collateralize 150%, and that's actually really tight. You need more in order to borrow money. That's really cool, and that's why we trust it and we can use it because these loans are collateralized. But how much more of a narrow use case can we think of for DeFi than people who are long on crypto assets, right? So I'm here with Ryan, and he is the founder and CEO of Fabrics. And someone had posted his project in DeFi Nation, and it was talking about, I think it's zero collateral loans. Is that right?
Yeah, zero collateral. Zero collateral.
And like it elicited immediate responses. You know, some people were really excited. Some people are like, how the heck is this going to work? It's definitely on the forefront of what we're interested in, meaning like we want to find ways for DeFi to go big, you know, for people who aren't in the DeFi space hanging out in Telegram to use it. So it's an exciting like stab that you're making into this space, and we want to learn more about it. Ryan, if it's cool with you, I'd like to kind of just quickly go through the way I think it works, and then you can be like, no, you missed this piece and that piece. Does that sound all right?
Sounds great.
Cool. So my understanding of it, just sort of very generally, is I'm able to lock up some collateral and borrow an equivalent amount to 100% of the value of my collateral. And then as I pay interest on that, that interest sort of applies to my wallet in the future, such that I can take out loans without as much collateral or with a lower loan to collateral ratio up to the point in the future, or up to an amount associated with how much interest I paid in the past. So I'm sort of like paying into that. Is that kind of the really big picture zoomed out?
Yes, I actually think that's the picture zoomed in.
Okay.
That's the real undertaking of how the economics work.
Okay.
I think the really big picture zoomed out is we want someone who just says, hey, I want 10 grand. Can I get, and asks like DeFi, can I get 10 grand and I'll pay 7% on this loan, I'll pay it back in 60 days. To actualize on that vision is far more complex than it sounds, as we've been discussing in the DeFi space. So the challenge that we continue to run into when creating this concept of zero collateral was, how do we bring in identity in a reputation system? And we were really excited about pushing zero collateral, as it's also a project on top of another platform, an infrastructure play that we were building out called Stratosphere. And we saw this as a perfect opportunity to showcase how we can interoperate these centralized financial worlds of credit scores, risk management, and DeFi, so we can truly make this identity happen. But before any of that can really occur, we wanted to create a identity per wallet. And this is based on a monetary identity. And I think you explained it beautifully of how the monetary identity gets built over time with you paying back loans.
And so my understanding of that monetary identity is you're actually just making sure on a wallet by wallet basis that the sort of total money put into the system exceeds the amount taken out.
Yep, exactly.
And so like, I think that's a really cool stab into like getting started with this. And I want to ask you about the infrastructure play in just a second. But I'm curious, what is the collateral types that can be put into this system, and what can be borrowed?
So the initial concept was simply the collateral is what you're borrowing. And I think what's amazing was the amount of feedback we got. That was one of the things that we didn't think, we're like, duh, this makes sense. Because I think we're coming from the approach of, if I was a normal person in wherever in the world and had no clue what crypto was, so it's just money in, money out. Mm-hmm. What we're exploring is the use of a variety of stablecoins you can use as collateral, utilizing ETH or Bitcoin as collateral. I think the use of collateral that is not the asset itself is simply more tricky, as we've seen in the crypto space, because the integration of oracles are needed, margin calls that are necessary. But we ultimately want to expand, and I think the first way that we would expand is a multi-stable coin loan. So you deposit something like DAI, an algorithmically based stablecoin, you can withdraw USDC, or vice versa, before we really go into volatile assets. And I think the first would obviously be Ethereum.
Okay, so why is somebody putting in DAI and borrowing DAI or borrowing USDC?
Yes, So this is something that we've been actively working on how we can create a solution for, because the limit issue with the system is, why would you initially put in one DAI of collateral to then borrow one DAI? What we've thought of is creating incentive mechanisms that can enable you, that would incentivize behavior to pretty much to employ this method. Thus, you can start getting into the system, and immediately after your first borrow, the amount of collateral you need decreases. So the kind of conundrum is only at the initial start of the borrow and the lending process. What we're thinking of is having some type of variable interest rate, and the ability that if you prepay or if you have some paid amounts that's already paid back, or you prepay, the amount of interest you have per loan decreases. Thus, we can incentivize people to start that process of take out the first loan if it is 100% collateralized.
Okay. So you're sort of building a relationship with the platform in your wallet, building this credit history. And I guess, but wallets, would you say that wallets are transferable?
So wallets are not, but tokens are.
But aren't wallets, can't I just give someone, well, okay, I mean, I guess I can't give someone my seed word.
Well, our thought process was, this is probably not for a V2, you tokenize it. You tokenize pretty much your account on the protocol, the wallet's account on the protocol.
Okay, so you might have an NFT sitting in your wallet?
Yes, potentially.
Okay, that's interesting. So you would actually want to make the reputation transferable? Make it a commodity, make it a product?
That was a pretty fascinating derivation that was brought up as feedback. Okay. You can't transfer a wallet because of the private key.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a really awesome financial engineering concept.
So that's interesting, and I don't want to go like too far down the nerdy channel, so we're going to lose everybody. But like the point of a reputation, of course, is that it like refers to the identity that built the reputation.
Yes.
So if you think of like what good actors are going to buy a reputation? Like none, right? They don't need to buy a reputation because they're good, or maybe they need to just because they want to start further along in the relationship, but continue to be a good actor.
Yep.
All very interesting questions. What I'd like to do though is I want to go back to that comment you made about this is something of a foray into the DeFi and into this under collateralized loan thing from a platform. So can you tell me a little bit more about that, the infrastructure side?
Yeah, definitely. So the project we've been working on for some time now, almost in stealth mode, is called Stratosphere. It's a cloud interoperable blockchain. What we had been really diving deep into are the key use cases and focuses, and what we felt people could truly integrate that will power the next generation of modern applications building on this decentralized web. What we wanted to see from DeFi is the ability to take out this loan fully under collateralized, where your reputation innately is your collateral. And in the standard borrow and lending world, the normal bank ecosystem, you have a credit score. Loans have specific data components that are measured, such as a mortgage can measure different pieces of what's going on with the home, or pieces of different infrastructure for the loan. What you don't have in DeFi is the ability to really pour this breadth of data into Ethereum and have it shown and really integrated into the ETH world. And this is where we see this infrastructure play really fitting in, where Ethereum is focused on delivering a decentralized network for data that is small but extremely high value and is unique, such as money, finance, governance, items, etc. We see this infrastructure play as a companion where it's looking at data that has low value to it. It doesn't have to be unique, but there's massive troves of it. And this is where the Stratosphere play can come into play. With DeFi specifically, it's the extension of credit scores from just standard sources such as Credit Karma, Experian. With mortgages, with loans specifically, it's data related to the loan itself. Could be of the mortgage, could be of student loans. And then it could get into real just spending or connection to a bank. So we can start kind of bridging these worlds. And that data amassed in some type of way where we can maintain privacy, I think could really lead to a bloom in DeFi and bring this world to my parents and my grandparents.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's huge. I think there's like a lot of questions around, or I have a lot of questions around like how you're going to bring a, off-chain behavior onto the blockchain. There's questions of security there. All this stuff, all the cool things that blockchain enables for us also like stops us from being able to access lots of things. So like it's verifiable, it's immutable, etc. But like we can't put like really meaty data on there, and it's hard to like make sure that the sources are good. And like if somebody messes with my credit score and I get a wrong entry on there, how do you fix that? And if you enable someone to fix that, that means you gave them the power to ruin it or to be corrupt, etc. So what are some of your thoughts? Like, I guess I'm curious then, like, do you expect this to be a decentralized system, or do you see it as like kind of a mix? How do you see that?
It's decentralized enough, as we call it. The way that it works is we have a breadth of nodes, a network of nodes that all hold a specific or connected to specific cloud providers. So you can think of our node network as instead of having an EVM, it has AWS and theoretically every other cloud provider in that each node. When an application comes to the Stratosphere network, they say, hey, I have a normal Web 2 application such as a credit score platform, and we don't want to have the data that's coming in held on our centralized cloud server. We actually want to deploy it across some number of nodes. So with the Stratosphere network, we're able to say, as the data comes in from the credit score, we would like that to be distributed across 10 different nodes, 100 different nodes, etc., that are all able to store and compute on the capacity of normal cloud today. So it's decentralized to the point that that application provider wants it to be. What we have that makes this a blockchain and makes it authentic and trustless is the consensus layer. So to not go into too nerdy details, it's built on Tendermint, which will probably be interoperating with Cosmos. The way that it works is we have these nodes where all of the actual computation happens and the data happens. When each node gets asked a question or a data entry comes in, every node has to perform the same operation, and they all are hashed on chain that they came out, and there's a majority of consensus between the nodes of the data there. So we're treating it as the network that you can start interoperating this cloud world and putting it onto a decentralized network, and kind of the app developer, the protocol creator is dependent on how decentralized they want it to be.
Okay. So that part I understand. Now the sort of the app developer, as I understand, might be the one who owns this credit score data.
So today, yes. So if it's someone like Experian, yes.
Okay.
And I think what our concept is, if we don't have partnerships with these players, is how can we pull this data from multiple sources and then merge that into the data being integrated to Stratosphere, and then you can have the data hosted on a trustless distributed cloud.
Okay. And now I'm curious on the other end then. So let's say I was somebody who wanted to lend money and earn a certain return. I'm imagining there's probably just an infinite number of kind of interfaces and ways to hash that. So like you could have a way where somebody comes on and says, well, here's my credit score provided through this system. And also like, here's what I want to do with the money. And here's, you could almost do like a microfinance kind of model. Or you could maybe have bundles of people that are all borrowing together. And so there's like a certain amount of hedge risk. Like, have you thought about maybe that interface, the customer facing lending and borrowing side?
So I think we're viewing this the same way that Compound views their protocol, in that our goal is not to be the interface creators. We really see ourselves as the protocol designers from both ends of the infrastructure play on Ethereum and Stratosphere, where we ourselves are not really envisioning yet. We wanted our interface as it is today to be as simple as possible. And we really looked at Compound for inspiration, not only the interface, but how they've been going around and gaining adoption and pushing forward the protocol itself. So the short answer is not necessarily. We want to keep it as simple as possible for now and really leave it up to all the others who have been integrating with DeFi protocols today into their interface.
Cool, that makes sense. So you talked about, so Stratosphere is the name of your project, and it's been running kind of in stealth. Does that mean that
we've been building it in stealth? It is not live. We did not expect to gain the popularity from Zero Collateral that we did initially. It was really a project that we had been pushing as an example use case that we thought was immediately applicable.
Okay.
But this popularity has really grown us to start actually talking about it.
Sure. Okay, that's cool. Well, so you're getting like sort of pushed out in the middle of the stage before you had your lines memorized.
Yeah.
Like that. Right on. And so so we have Stratosphere and Cosmos. And so then maybe just for someone who might not understand exactly how this will work, how would that allow you to plug into the Ethereum DeFi system as it exists now?
Really easy oracles. So I can actually run through demos. Anyone watching this, I can create a video and a demo of this. It's nearly trivial to create oracles that interoperate between Ethereum and the Stratosphere network. The reason being, when you deploy an oracle to Stratosphere, you're really just writing a normal script that any normal Web 2 developer would write. And they can select the number of nodes that they want it deployed onto. So if I am writing something that plugs in data from the credit scores, I'd say I want the oracle run on 10 different nodes, and then you have a simple Ethereum contract that speaks and communicates to the oracles.
Okay, I see. So the oracles would just have to do with the price of Ethereum, basically?
No, the oracles would really be feeding the data into Ethereum based on what that specific data is. So if it's a credit score, it would feed that into your wallet data or something.
Okay, I see. So really you're creating something that will allow any blockchain to use the system.
Yes.
The interoperability piece. Okay, nice. Cool, man. That's awesome. I actually think we've probably covered quite concisely. Like you did a really good job of I think hitting all the major points we needed.
Oh, thank you.
Just maybe one final kind of focus I'd like to know is from the user standpoint, we have people in DeFi Nation who like to use these different tools, who are currently lending and borrowing, et cetera. What do you see as the most immediate use cases that Zero Collateral has for these people? Or just that.
Short-term loans. I would say short-term loans. Some of the biggest feedback we received is threefold. One is no one likes a 20% interest rate, so we're working on that. Understood. Two, because the way we initially structured it, you could only start with one DAI. We want to fix both of those with this new kind of concept we're coming up with, where you can state how much you want to borrow. And based on that, the collateral needed is derived from how much you want to borrow. And also, we're going to have probably loans that are starting at 12%, and will be able to be decreased down to 6% or 4% based on, one, the amount of interest you pay back and the amount of collateral that you hold. So we're kind of tackling those two models, but it's still going after short-term loans that people would want to take out $100, take out $1,000 to go do something with within the month. What's pretty awesome from a big picture standpoint is this happens frequently. Less than, I think it's almost 40% of Americans have only $1,000 in their bank account, which means they frequently take out a loan to pay for something and then pay it back within the month. And I think, kind of scarily enough, it's 4 or 5% of Americans, 14 million Americans, I think, are stuck on payday loans. So every single 2 weeks, they're taking out a loan at 20% for those 2 weeks, pay it back, and it's a vicious cycle. So I think we're bringing a fresh breath of fresh air to that, the pay short-term loan cycle.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Cool. I like that. Well, thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate you taking the time. I would love to see maybe some demos or some updates when it's when you've got users and kind of once you've hashed out the different details around the amount of collateral and the interest rates and things like that. So I hope we can hear some updates from you on that.
Definitely. Sounds great.
Cool. Awesome, Ryan. Well, yeah, look forward to each new development, and thanks for taking the time. Cheers.
Awesome. Cheers. Go ahead and take care, DeFi Nation.